My family gave me an ultimatum: hand over a third of my settlement or lose them forever. I said I needed a night to think. What I actually needed was a printer. 3 years ago, a distracted driver ran a red light and changed my life. 2 surgeries, 18 months of physical therapy, and a legal battle that felt like a second job. I handled all of it, mostly alone. My parents came to one of my surgeries. My brother Marcus showed up once while I was still on crutches, borrowed $200, and didn't come back. That's who they were. That's who they'd always been. I had stopped expecting it to change. I had just never figured out how to make it stop. I was the one who bailed Marcus out of his first apartment lease when he was 22, who paid my mom's electric bill 3 months running the winter her hours got cut, who lent my dad money for car repairs 4 separate times, money that was never mentioned again after it left my hands. Every time I stabilized myself financially, someone needed something. Every time I said no, I sat through a lecture about what family means. When my attorney called to say the settlement was finalized, significantly more than we'd expected, I made the mistake of telling my mom that same evening. I could hear the shift in her voice within seconds. By the next morning, she'd told Marcus and my dad. They showed up together. That should have been my first warning. Dad opened with the speech about how family lifts each other up. Marcus said he'd been struggling and that I knew what it was like to need support. Mom framed it as temporary, just until Marcus got back on his feet. Then Dad said the actual number they wanted, a third. And if I wasn't willing to share with the people who raised me and loved me, maybe I needed to reconsider what family meant. I told them I needed to sleep on it. That night I opened my laptop. My settlement check had already cleared. The funds were sitting in a separate account I'd opened 2 weeks earlier at a different bank, one none of them knew about. What I printed that night was a fake notification letter, same formatting as my attorney's letterhead, showing a settlement amount roughly a third of what I'd actually received. Not enough to share, barely enough to cover my ongoing medical costs and lost wages. I folded it, put it in the envelope it had supposedly come in, and left it on the kitchen table before bed. The next morning, I told them I'd made my decision. I wasn't giving anyone anything. I watched their faces harden. Dad asked if that was my final answer. I said it was. Mom said she hoped I understood what I was choosing. I told her I understood exactly. What I didn't do was mention the letter on the table. I found out later from a cousin what happened after I left for work. They went through my things, which, to be honest, I'd expected. They found the letter, they read it. Marcus apparently laughed and said the number wasn't even worth fighting over. Dad called it karma. Mom said I deserved to struggle since I clearly didn't value what I had. That evening, my phone rang. Mom's voice was different, measured. She said they'd reconsidered and weren't going to pursue anything, that they hoped we could move forward. I asked her why. She said the money was less than they'd thought and it wasn't worth the conflict. I told her the number she'd seen wasn't real, that the actual settlement was 3 times larger and had been moved before they'd ever knocked on my door. Silence. Then she asked if I'd set them up. I said I'd just given them the chance to show me who they were when they thought there was nothing left to take. Marcus texted me 6 times over the next 2 weeks. Dad called twice. I responded to none of it. I'm not angry, which genuinely surprises me. I thought I would be. Instead, I feel something closer to relief, the specific kind that comes after you've finally stopped waiting for people to be different than they are. I bought a decent used car, paid off my remaining medical bills, and put the rest somewhere they'll never see. Last month, I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom across town. Nobody has a key.